Today, as part of our ongoing series of face-to-face interviews with Mayo candidates in the forthcoming general election, we're live in studio this morning with Paul Lawless, who's representing the Aontú political party. Paul is from Knock. He's a secondary school teacher in Ballyhonus Community School, where he teaches maths and PE. He joins us live in studio. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Tommy. It's great to be here, and a very good morning to all the listeners across Mayo.
First question, what is the difference between Aontú and all of the other political parties?
Well, I really feel that Aontú, despite being just one TD Peadar Tóibín, we have been the only party really that have provided the level of opposition that people would have expected. From the family and care referendum, for example, a really good example where we were the only political party that actually campaigned against that. And we did so because we actually critically analysed the proposal. We thought removing the word mother from the Constitution was a bad idea. And also we thought the state should be doing so much more to protect carers. Meanwhile, the other political parties campaigned for it, and indeed some politicians campaigned for it and voted against it. An incredible situation, but there are many other reasons. The hate speech legislation as well, the only political party to vote against the hate speech legislation. And Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have failed the people, and Sinn Féin have acted more like a collusion. And the level of, like, the people and that I speak to, Tommy, no longer trust Sinn Féin, because they've flip-flopped on so many issues. People trust Aontú, and that's the key thing. We stand up for what we believe in, and that is critically important. We are the only political party really providing a critique to the government policy. We've done so across so many different areas. Immigration is another key issue where Aontú has led the conversation in terms of mining information through parliamentary questions, whether that's around deportation and the fact that this state is actually only exercising or enforcing 5% of deportation orders. That information has come through Aontú, and we have called for a fair and a compassionate approach, but also a stricter approach. We have called for that consistently throughout this government term, and we hear Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael now changing the rhetoric, and indeed many other political parties are stealing our ideas in relation to so many issues.
Okay, I'm looking at your literature. I cannot really decipher from it the arguments you make in relation to healthcare, crime, affordable housing, all of the health issues. That's really any different to what all the other political parties are saying.
We are significantly different, and I think it's testament to the fact that we've opposed the government on so many issues, from immigration to the hate speech and the family and care referendums, for example. But on the issue of housing you mentioned, Tommy, we are the only political party in this state that are actually seeking to consider the cost of building and try to reduce the cost of building. So, for example, we want to see a 0% VAT rate in the construction industry in terms of materials. This government has got lots of schemes. Those schemes, for example, the affordable housing scheme. The affordable housing scheme have actually delivered zero housing for Mayo. Zero. Not one unit has been delivered. And the vast majority, in fact, the entire east and south of the county, the Claremorris and Swinford Municipal District, is not even considered for any affordable housing scheme, while the north and Ballina there's no active consideration there either. We want to see affordable housing in Mayo, but we also believe that this government is fixated on policies and delivery in the east and in Dublin in particular, and that is why, my generation, many of my generation dream of building their own home on their own family land. We want to ensure building your own family home is viable again. That is why we want to reduce the cost of building. It's incredible that no other political party has actually sought to do this, and we also want to remove the bureaucracy in relation to the planning system. I spoke to a man recently in Ballina, for example, who has a young family, a young man who's 5 years in the planning system through a number of applications, and he's in the onboard Penola, massive delays in relation to that. His rent has doubled during that time, and the cost of building his house has increased by well over €200,000. That is an injustice to this family.
Okay, so what you're proposing in Aontú is zero rate of VAT for builders. Is that correct?
We want to see a zero rate of VAT on building products.
On building
products for the next 3 to 5 years. The tax on building is massively significant. When you add up all the various different taxes, you're looking at maybe 40% or in the region of that in terms of taxation. We need to ensure that we reduce that, Tommy. So people, young people, single people, people who want to build their own home can have a chance to do so. And we are a very pro party in terms of pro regional and rural Ireland. And the fact is that many politicians have come on this show and many others from Mayo and have talked about prioritising housing, when yet they talked about that 5 years ago and have delivered zero affordable housing in Mayo. And I think it's the people of Mayo deserve a government that will prioritise the issues and not give lip service.
What are the consequences of zero rate on building products for 3 to 5 years going to be to the taxpayer?
Well, the consequences, firstly, the government is pumping a lot of money into housing, and it is a key issue for government. The consequences for my generation is that we're essentially being pushed into the box bedroom of our family homes, and tens of thousands of young people.
Okay,
Tommy,
it's such a. Ask the question again. Let me ask it again. I mean, have you costed how much that will cost the exchequer?
We certainly have, Tommy, and the budget in terms of housing, we won't exceed what the government is spending already in terms of housing, but we do think it's an important policy. The other issue that we are alone in terms of talking about the housing crisis is we want to launch Operation Shamrock, and Operation Shamrock will essentially help to bring all of the not all, but some of the builders in Canada and Australia home. We know that there are many builders and workers in Canada and Australia building homes in those countries. We want to see a relocation allowance back into Ireland to give them an opportunity. We also want to see a tax credit for those builders as well. And we will also build rapid build homes through the planning circumvention class 17 to ensure that we do that, to give them an opportunity to come back. But it's really, really important. We're struggling in terms of numbers. For example, I sat in a municipal district meeting last week, and the average length of time it takes to turn around a vacant property for reletting that's owned by Mayo County Council is 40 weeks. That's almost 1 year. And one of the biggest issues is around construction workers. We want to see an increase in apprenticeships, and we also want to bring our workers and our builders home. And we have policies in terms of tax breaks, in terms of relocation allowance and accommodation for them to do that.
But you still haven't been able to give me a figure as to the consequences of a zero VAT rate on all building products for 3 to 5 years. As to what is that? Is it costed?
It certainly is, Tommy, and I don't have the exact figure to hand, but what I will say, Tommy, is the cost of not doing it is phenomenal for our young people. It is a social catastrophe that so many people can't afford to build. And it's a dream. We've always lived here in the west of Ireland. We've dreamed of building our own family home, and this government has done nothing to support that in these difficult times. Aontú will deliver for Mayo. We will deliver affordable housing. We will ensure we have affordable housing in right across the region, including Claremorris and Swinford. It's incredible to think that there are Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil reps looking for votes in Claremorris and the Swinford Municipal District, talking about prioritising housing, while their government isn't even considering affordable housing and doesn't even have we don't even meet the criteria in terms of affordable housing. And I think that is deeply wrong, Tommy, to be calling for things that are simply not even in the manifesto of these parties.
Let's move to immigrants and refugees. Every day, people ask us to ask all the candidates the same question, which is, have Mayo taken enough?
Well, the first question.
No politician has so far said to me yes or no.
Firstly, Tommy, you mentioned that Aontú, how is Aontú different? And I think in the area of immigration, we have certainly shown that we are willing to stand up for the people in relation to this. The information we have mined in terms of parliamentary questions has been immense, and in fact, much of the conversation has centred on the information that Aontú has achieved. I do believe that Mayo has taken a significant significant amount of immigrants. It has been caused a significant impact to the hotel. Well, not the hotels, but the downstream in terms of hospitality. 35% of the beds have been taken, causing great difficulty. We don't have tourists because they can't come. And VAT rate then is a significant issue that we want to see reduced to keep these businesses viable. But I do believe, Tommy, that the government have been incredibly disingenuous and have misled the people around the issue of immigration. I have got so many calls from the people of Ballina, on Mercy Road in particular, and right across the town, and Crossmolina, asking me questions around St. Mary's, and asking me questions around the Ballina Boxing Club, or the former Ballina Boxing Club building, and the Dolphin Hotel in Crossmolina. And the fact is that this government have introduced a planning loophole, a circumvention, to ensure that local communities would be kept in the dark. People in Mayo are being treated like mushrooms. They're kept in the dark and fed rubbish by politicians, and misleading statements from Fine Gael last week in relation to, we have no information in relation to it. I have received information that has clearly stated that the developer in relation to St. Mary's is in contact with the department through a third party. These conversations are happening. The Section 5 application is progressing, and it's very convenient that the decision for this is going to take. The decision is on the 2nd of December, a few days after the general election.
But are you saying, Paul?
We will reduce. We will immediately in government. We will remove the planning circumvention. It is unfair that Irish people, Irish citizens, and families are waiting 5 and 6 and 7 years in a planning system. Meanwhile, IPAS developers can bypass the planning system entirely. Okay. Many of these developers, Tommy, are based outside of the country, registered in England and Switzerland and so on. They have no interest in many cases in the communities. They look to profit here. And, if we had the same approach to building, if we had the same approach of supporting our SMEs, like, there's no regulation in this industry, or almost zero, and we must put a stop to it. Okay. Communities must be at the heart of decision making, and we will ensure that planning circumvention is removed, and politicians telling you and talking about community consultation is a nonsense until this ends.
Square this circle for me. So on the one hand, you've just said to me that our hotels have been swamped with refugees, and as a result the consequences to our tourism sector has been badly affected. And on the other hand, you appear to be against all of these IPAS centres, which presumably the government want to move these refugees and migrants out of hotels and into other accommodations. So square that circle.
Well, firstly,
where should they go?
Firstly, I'm against the underhandedness upon which this government is doing its business. That's the first thing.
Where should they go?
I do believe that we have been incredibly lax in terms of our immigration system, Tommy. We are expected to cope with circa about 30,000 asylum seekers per year. We're on the periphery of Europe, and yet we have the highest number of asylum seeking per capita across the European Union. It's not because of our weather. It is because of we have pull factors that need to be addressed, and Aontú in government will do it. We will establish a Irish border agency that deals with the issue, that resources the issue. It's incredible that we have less than 100 Gardaí working in immigration control in this country. That needs to change. We need to ensure that the system is resourced. We will also, there are people in the system that are waiting for a decision in terms of asylum system for 10 years. Right. This has to end. We will ensure that decision happens within 6 months. Okay. And also, Tommy, and this is an important point, anyone coming to this country with a criminal record will be denied entry. I think, living in this country is a privilege and not a right. We need to ensure that those people who come are streamlined, they're vetted, and criminal, applicants with a criminal record will be denied entry. And the other thing is that there are a significant amount of people coming here with having destroyed their documents. This is, Michael O'Leary has stated this. I've been speaking to many people who work in the airline industry, and if it's happening, we know it's happening, and the government have done almost nothing to deal with it. Aontú will ensure that those people who purposely mislead the system will be dealt with.
And I know you're not trying to purposely mislead me, but I asked you two questions, none of which you've been able to give me a straight answer to. One is, have we taken enough immigrants into Mayo, and the second one being if you're against all of these planning permissions for these IPAS centres that you've referenced for Ballina, Crossmline and other areas, I think there's about 5 applications in at the moment, you're not giving me an answer to that question either, which is if they're being moved out of the hotels to provide more tourist beds, which I'm sure you're in favour of, where do you put them?
You see, Tommy, I think actually the issue is that the system is in chaos, and Aontú want to address the issues in the system, the issues that I mentioned earlier on. I mean, one of the reasons why we're scrambling for accommodation is because, as I mentioned, we've the highest per capita rate of asylum seeking in the EU.
Yeah, but you won't tell me if we've taken enough.
Well, I do believe that the people of Mayo have.
You said substantially enough. So is that enough?
Well, I certainly think that the government policy has been so reckless that we haven't actually been able to help the people that need our help. And but to answer your question, Tommy, I do believe that we have taken enough, and I think Aontú and government will address the issues, will ensure that we have a compassionate approach to those who need our help. But those people that don't will be sent home, and that will create capacity in the system. That is the important point. The government have done very well in terms of pitting people against each other and creating this divide, but we want to ensure that we have a system that's able to deal with the applicants, that we address the pull factors that are happening in this country, which is undoubtedly happening, and Aontú and government will tackle the issues, the big issues around immigration, and create capacity in the system because there'll be less asylum seeking.
Okay, and finally on that point, can I just make reference? It says, ask Paul why his stance on immigration is so decisive when he teaches in a multicultural school in Ballyhonus.
Look, in terms of immigration, I support legal immigration. Absolutely, we need it for the economy. And it's really important. But what I don't support is a haphazard approach to immigration. And in fact, many the government politicians are actually copying our lines in relation to this. So, we want to see a compassionate approach, but we also want to see a fair approach and a stricter approach as well.
Why is Paul putting up posts on his Facebook page claiming he got the hedge trimming done on the N17 when the councillor has no input to a national road? These roads are always cut without him or with him or any other councillor for that matter. Did you do that?
The hedges on the N17 were cut. I let the people know that it was happening. It was discussed at a municipal district meeting, and it's really important as a public representative that we let the people know what's happening.
Okay.
And
so you weren't claiming credit for it?
Oh, absolutely not. Okay. There was no credit taken, but I did want to let the people know that it is happening. It was raised at a municipal district meeting, and it was done by the TII.
Okay, this texter says, I live in a town where we often only have one guard on duty in a station on a Saturday night, and they're not allowed to leave the station unattended. They are not normally there all night. This is happening all over the place, and yet we hear government saying that we are introducing zero crime. I think you were at a crime prevention meeting last night.
I was at a crime prevention meeting in Kilmovee last night, Tommy. Crime is a big concern. It's a big priority for me. I think I'm the only politician that are making this a big issue. People should be able to feel safe in their homes. And the truth is that while the number of Gardaí is declining in Mayo, so for example, Mayo has received just one new recruit over the past 2 years. There's been quite a number of resignations and retirements during that time. The force is in decline, and crime is actually rising.
So how many guards do you reckon we need extra?
Well, I met with the Garda Commissioner recently, and the Garda Commissioner stated that we are 1,000 Gardaí short of where we need to be. I think in Mayo we're in the region of about 100 guards short or shy. But I asked the Garda Commissioner, the rank and file Gardaí, for example, the guards is no longer an intergenerational job. The guards used to be a job where a father would almost pass on the baton to his son. That link is broken, and it's very, very worrying. The rank and file Gardaí voted for the first time in its 100-year history, a vote of no confidence took place that voted 98% of no confidence in the Garda Commissioner. And I asked the Garda Commissioner, what has happened in the management of An Garda Síochána to address the issues of morale, to address the issues of recruitment and retention, because that is the key issue. We're 1,000 guards short. And the Garda Commissioner said nothing. Nothing has happened in the force. And
so how many guards are Aontú saying we should have? going forward?
We need to radically increase the number of Gardaí. We believe we need to have a 4,000 to 5,000 guards more than what we have today. I've been speaking to guards who tell me that they don't have time to deal with the issues of drug use, for example. Drug use is happening right across Mayo. It's happening at a very young age, a worrying some age. I'm a teacher myself. I understand, and I know lots of teenagers. It's happening at an increasingly young age. And the Gardaí are telling me they know it's happening, but they just don't have the resources to deal with it. We're creating an avalanche of problems down the line until we tackle this issue. And the other thing to say, Tommy, is that Ballinrobe is in immense difficulty at the moment. Ballinrobe is seeing a spike in crime. There are major issues in terms of what's happening in Ballinrobe, and it's unfair on the Gardaí in Claremorris, who cannot deal with the issues in Claremorris and cannot address the issues of crime in Ballinrobe and South Mayo. Aontú and government will deliver Gardaí. We will ensure that we address the issues of recruitment and retention around pay and conditions. We'll tackle the morale issue, and we will open a full-time Garda station in Ballinrobe. And I do believe it's an incredible thing to say that the Commissioner has done nothing to address the issues of recruitment and retention, and the work practices need to be addressed. Years ago, this country had proactive policing. The idea that the guard was almost a bird on the wire. He knew what was going on. He knew everyone, and he could spot the criminals and the activity and the issues before they even happened. Now, Gardaí are tied up in knots behind screens, and the people of Ballinrobe and Claremorris and Belmullet and Ballina and Castlebar want to see visibility of Gardaí.
Okay.
And I don't blame the Gardaí, Tommy. It's really important to say this. They don't have the manpower. They've one new recruit. They're in decline. I met the recruit, and they really need more. Okay. And the other thing to say, Tommy, is this, that because of the lack of national recruits, and because we're about 1,000 guards short, the numbers of new recruits that are recruited from Templemore, graduated from Templemore, are being sent to the east and Dublin, and that area has been prioritised. And like many other issues, the west has been forgotten. And the people that I spoke to yesterday in Kilmovee had really, really harrowing stories of being burgled during the day. And one sergeant who spoke last night talked about criminal gangs coming down from Dublin, carrying out a spree of burglaries in Mayo, and going back with a haul of goods.
Okay, just on a local issue, and we are almost out of time, the refurbishment of the Belmont Hotel and the estate of houses currently empty in Knock. What's the situation there? They've been left empty, and in the current housing crisis, people in Knock are saying, what's going on? Do you know?
The houses that your listener is referring to is privately owned. They're not owned by the Mayo County Council, but I do know that there are discussions ongoing, and we are working with that private owner to try and bring a resolution to that situation.
All right, in 30 seconds, number one for Paul Lawless, what will it mean to the people of Mayo?
Look, I'm asking the listeners to please consider giving me their number one. I have shown that I'm a very hard worker. I'm proactive in terms of representing the people I represent. I deliver for the people. For example, in 2019, I started the Mayo Cataract Bus. I've helped hundreds of people get off waiting list. Health, which we didn't have time to discuss, is a major concern. Aontú have policies in terms of the activity-based funding model to actually address the issues of capacity in the health system. That is a key priority as well, Tommy, and we will deliver on crime. I know the issues in terms of what's happening in on Garda Síochána. I know why we were struggling in terms of recruits and retention, and we need to address it. On the key ticket items, in terms of housing, in terms of health, in terms of crime, this government have failed. All of the key metrics are going in the wrong direction. We cannot have another 5 years of decline. We must stop decline, and that is why I'm asking people of Mayo, the good people of Mayo who trusted me in the local election and who gave me their number one. I'm asking those people and many others right across Mayo to vote for a candidate that is going to put Mayo first. We have seen the influence that small parties have had on government over many years, and Aontú want to be the voice of common sense, to have a big influence on government, to deliver in terms of health and housing and crime for the people of Mayo.
And that is 30 seconds in the definition of Paul Lawless. How are your bees bees doing these days?
Yeah, well, I'm a beekeeper as well.
Yes.
It was a poor summer for the bees, by the way, but I love the bees. They're great time. I have a great club in the Ballyhonus Beekeepers Club. We're great friends, and I'm looking forward to another good summer, hopefully next year, to get out in the bees.
All right, well, Paul Lawless definitely buzzing this morning, that is for sure. So that's Paul Lawless of Aontú. Tomorrow morning, we've got two debates or two interviews. We're going to be interviewing Rose Conway-Walsh of Sinn Féin, and Martina Jennings from Fine Gael will be joining us also in two separate interviews tomorrow morning.